Welcome to Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibiers? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi, here to bring you day 12 in the Lori Vallow Daybell murder trial. It was a day of financials and ended with April Raymond on the stand, Lori's old friend from Hawaii. I've always loved April Raymond. She's beautiful and she wasn't buying what Lori was selling. We're going to jump in, but first, got to give a big thank you to Dawn from the courthouse. I appreciate you, friend. Jana, Night Sprite, Stephanie, Laura Lee, Coffee, Christy K, Brad, Madeline, Brianne, Carolyn, and Deanna. Thank you for your donations. I appreciate you guys. It helps me do what I do, which is what I love. All right. So music fact of the day. Okay. So I've had the song Jive Talking in my head all day from the Beatles. I mean, it has been an earworm from the time I woke up. Not sure why. So I did a Bee Gees music fact. In 1978, I was one, and it was a really good year for the Bee Gees. They released 8 number one singles, including How Deep Is Your Love, Staying Alive, Night Fever, Too Much Heaven, and Barry Gibb wrote the theme song for the movie Grease. So there you go. Now you know. All right. So we started the day with Detective Chuck Kunseadis. Sorry, Chuck, if I butchered your name. I'm famous for doing that. He was still on the stand under direct. So Rob Wood was up for the state. They were talking about the loan document for that 2018 Jeep Wrangler. Now, remember, it looks like Charles actually bought that Jeep for Tylee. I'd always kind of been under the impression it was Charles's Jeep and Tylee was just driving it. But the significance of this is that the money for the Jeep payments was coming out of Tylee's personal bank account, where at the time, her Social Security benefits for the death of her father, Joe Ryan, were coming into. And the payments were $599.99 a month. The last payment in that was August of 2019. The bank account wasn't changed for that Jeep payment. So why did it bounce? Well, remember, Lori switched where that Social Security money would come from Tylee's personal bank account into Lori's own bank account. And if you add everything up, she was getting nearly $6,000 between the two kids' Social Security payments and her caregiver payment. They should totally get a refund for all that because she wasn't giving no care to these kids at that point. But it bounced. So the last payment for that Jeep was August 2019. The Jeep was seized, as we know, in November up in Rexburg. And here's the kicker. Nobody called to say, hey, you guys see my Jeep because it's not in the parking lot, because they knew why it had been seized. So there's an email from Chad Daybell on November 8th, 2019 to Kauai Dream Realty. I always want to say reality is realty. It says, we are interested in seeing this property. Would the owner be interested in leasing to a clean couple with no pets or kids? This was sent 3 days after they wed on the beach in Hawaii. They were showing Tylee's Venmo account that was used for $100, and the IP address that $100 was sent to Colby was at an airport in Kansas City, Missouri. We know Lori was visiting Missouri with her friend and Melanice. They were going to see all the amazing sites that were prominent in the LDS faith. So we know that what would happen in the past is it seems like maybe Lori would send Tylee some money and then Tylee would send that to Lori. I remember one interview Colby did. He said his mom did not really know how to use Venmo and things like that. So typically Tylee would. After Tylee was murdered, I'm sure Lori knew. And there was a lot of money sent to Colby. They also confirmed about the Kansas City trip. There were 2 guests at a Residence Inn. It was under Melanice's name. And so we know they made that trip anyway. They say the IP addresses were significant because it was used on Tylee's phone to send that transfer. And investigators knew the kids were not on this trip. So one thing they did was look into pharmaceutical records for JJ to see if his medication had been filled. This is done through a state agency prescription monitoring program, and they'll run checks to see if there was any kind of refills made. They searched in Idaho, Arizona, Hawaii, and Montana. There was nothing found having been filled for JJ. And the reason that they searched Montana for refills is because they had received a tip the kids may be on a compound in Montana. It would have been amazing if that were true. I don't know about you guys. Let me know in the comments. I went back and forth the whole time the kids were missing. One moment I would think there's no way these poor children are alive. You have a 17-year-old who has been separated from her phone for a long time. And then you have a 7-year-old with autism who clearly is a lot to keep up with. And I think Tylee definitely could have managed. I think Tylee showed that kid so much love. Tylee will always have my love and respect for what she did. I think the only reason that young lady moved up there was because she knew Lori was becoming incapable of taking care of him. I have such a soft spot in my heart for Tylee Ryan, that beautiful girl. He submitted multiple names for JJ in Montana, by the way, just to see if she was doing some hokey stuff with these prescriptions to go unmonitored. The names ranged from Vallow to Ryan, so they would check for JJ Ryan to see if maybe she had it filled under that name. They also looked for any prescriptions for Tylee, Lori, and Melanice and found nothing. In Arizona, we know they last refilled that medication for JJ way back in January of 2019 when all of this mess got started. Remember, 2019 in January was when Lori, out of the blue, cancels the plane ticket home, hides the truck, moves all of Charles' stuff out, and decides she's going to be with Chad. This is just a couple of months after meeting Chad, by the way. I also think they found 17 pills in JJ's bottle in November during that search warrant. So we know she wasn't medicating him. And Kay Woodcock said the exact same thing on an interview where she said that last ring cam footage of JJ playing with the neighbor kid in Idaho, he was not himself. He was angry. He was using bad words. And she knew just looking at that video, the child wasn't being medicated. Now, get this, y'all. September 8th, 2019. What happens on that day? Well, we know that's the last time Tylee is seen alive in Yellowstone National Park. What does Lori do at 5:03 p.m.? She sends an email to her accountant about forwarding Charles's tax return monies because she's moved. It blows my mind. Tylee is going to be murdered within hours. And what is she doing? Looking to get more money. None of this is lost on the jury, by the way. I'm going to tell you, they're like me in the Murdaugh trial, constantly writing. They are having to, I think, to keep this straight. But it's interesting to watch the times when they do start writing down in their notepads, which is consistently. And I'm going to shout out this jury again. I say the Murdaugh jury was amazing, and they were. This jury here, every single person from the time they come in the morning until we are recessed, they are all ears, writing notes, totally engaged in this story. And it's really hard not to be if you don't know the story as it unfolds. It just becomes so much more unbelievable. But hats off to these jurors because they are all in. They are completely invested. So the next exhibit they show is from American Airlines, and they're looking for flight records. There was flight history for Tylee. She flew to Hawaii in February and March of 2019. Lori traveled several times, and there was none on Southwest or American for JJ. Sorry. The one flight of interest for Lori is she returned from Hawaii to Phoenix, then on to Idaho Falls on October 23rd, 2019, which happens to be the same day Tammy Daybell is buried. So for Southwest Airlines being used by Lori to travel a few times, they also got the records to see if Tylee and JJ traveled on Southwest. JJ had 6 trips from Arizona to Texas, with that last trip being June 16th of 2019. That was probably just the back and forth to be with Charles. So there was nothing on Allegiant Air. There were flights paid by Lori to fly Chad January 6, 2019. Also, several for Melanice between Idaho Falls to Arizona. They showed the exhibit from Etsy from August 15th, 2019, where Lori bought the glow-in-the-dark malachite wedding rings. And remember, the site owner who made those rings could not fulfill that order because they were busy. But it's interesting to note on the document, the delivery address would be the same house Charles Vallow was murdered in. Now, Mr. Archibald had no questions for this witness, as was the case a lot of the day. Some of this testimony centered around the murder of Charles in a roundabout way. And they objected to that coming in under the rule of prior bad acts. But this is such a complicated case. You have to give them context with Charles. Otherwise, things get really confusing. And if you leave out the fact that he was murdered by Alex, I think it would really be hard for these jurors to get kind of a bigger picture. But the next witness up was from the FBI, and it was Mike Douglas. He reviewed nearly 80 bank accounts and credit card statements for Lori, Chad, Alex, and more players. He didn't elaborate on who more was. They show a bar graph for Tylee's monies. We know the payments for Social Security to Tylee were going into her Chase account. He said his observations for Tylee, she was very responsible with her money. She never had any negative balances, which is pretty big for a 16-year-old. I have to say, I have not got my kids' bank accounts. They got a Cash App card where I can reload it and they're not, having me pay all these $40 overdraft fees. But if you're Alec Murdaugh, you only pay $5. Remember from that trial. She actually paid on her own for her Jeep and her cell phone service through T-Mobile. Now, we know Joe Ryan dies on April 3rd, 2018, and she got those Social Security payments, which started June 14th of 2018. Also, there were payments made to the GED program. It looks like she finished on October 12th, 2018, less than a year after she would be murdered. On Joe's life insurance policy, it was paid to a bank account in Lori's name for $65,000 on October 26, 2018. You think about it, at this point, she's met Chad. She gets this big lump sum of money. This makes it easy for her to do what she did in January, I think. And don't forget, she drained Charles dry, $35,000 out of the business account. He couldn't make payroll. He was freaking out, obviously, as a business owner when you can't pay your employees. Lori had a lot of money, I think, from October up until she probably spent it all flying, Chatty Potter down to see her. Tylee also had deposits from her Aunt Summer's husband, who owns a chiropractic clinic. She was working for that clinic for a period of time. Now, Charles co-signed for the Jeep, and that first payment was June 3rd, 2018. We know July 11th, Charles is murdered. 1 week later, there is that text between Lori and Chad about her estimating she would get $4,000 from Social Security money, but that's when she says there's no life insurance policy. It's like a spear through my heart. July 24th, 2019, that was the last Social Security payment into Tylee's solo account. Lori did have a $2 million life insurance policy on herself. And on August 12th, 2019, what does she do? She made Colby the sole beneficiary for that account. No JJ, no Tylee. Now, on August 16th, 2019, that's when the change happened with those accounts from Tylee's to Lori's for those payments. Then on August 19th, 2019, Tylee and Lori opened a joint BBBA checking account. And then on August 28th was that initial deposit of Tylee's Social Security money going into Lori's account. September 8th, 2019, the day Tylee is last seen, Colby texts Tylee asking for a Venmo transfer. She said she did not have the money because Lori was in control of her money at that time. We also know on that same day, Chad is Googling south-southwest wind direction. Tylee would be buried that next day on his property. On September 20th, 2019, after her murder, her Chase account is closed. And then the same day, from Tylee's phone, there is a Venmo sent to Colby. Now, we know JJ's death date, they estimate as September 23rd, 2019. So the financial timeline for that, JJ started getting Social Security benefits on September 18th, 2019. That went into Lori's account. I'm doing the math on my fingers. 5 days before he's murdered, he starts getting those Social Security payments. They also mention and get in that on August 9th, 2019, Lori tried to sell JJ's service dog, Bailey. That was objected to in the past, but I'm glad that got out. Now, here's how much Lori was receiving between the two kids' Social Security accounts and her caregiver monies from the government. Monthly, she was getting $5,740 total. Who could not live on that comfortably? Really? We have people living paycheck to paycheck with 3 and 4 kids, and it was never enough for her. So JJ and Tylee's payments were October 2019 to January 2020. So the total that she got after the kids were murdered for all 3 of those payments, Tylee's, JJ's, and hers, $22,545.05. They're really just laying out these grand theft charges for the jury because that is included in this trial. Not only the conspiracy to commit murder, but the financial crimes. And they made clear that the kids were deceased when she was still getting these. Now, what happens on September 8th, 2019, which is just a month and 11 days before Tammy's murdered, there is an increase in her life insurance policy. I've been told it was maxed out to what it could be at the time. That became retroactive to September 1st. Now, on September 10th, Tylee, as we know, is deceased and just buried the day before, but her Venmo added a new funding source. And then on September 18th, JJ's benefits start. They also found Venmos for Lori. She had 2 different ones. One was Lori-Vallow-1, and the other was Lori for Style. Tylee's Venmo had one funding source, and that was used until the end of 2019. When she was alive, she paid friends Venmos and lesser amounts being transferred. The bigger amounts came from Lori's account to Colby. So Lori's accounts favored Colby and his wife. The payments were large and often. Lori transferred $5,940 to Colby over 20 transactions. And there were multiple attempts to purchase malachite rings. So they move on to Alex Cox's finances. Now, we know he had quit his job to move to Rexburg, which is Zion. And he also took out a loan for $21,000, which is what he was living off of. So Chad's financials. Prior to Tammy's death, Lori was paying Chad's way to travel. She was the one buying all of his plane tickets because, Chad was making like $2,000 a year on his books. So that's literally like one flight these days, pretty much, y'all. By the time you pay for your flight and some airport snacks and get some Wi-Fi on board, it's like $2,000. There were 2 flights bought on the card with Lori and Alex as users. So it was Alex's account. Lori was an authorized user with her own card. One purchase with Lori and Charles's card to fly him to her. Alex made most of the payments for that credit card account. They did say Lori made one from her joint account. So Chad's Spring Creek Publishing Company account, September 18th, he purchased a cell phone for $42 at a Walmart in Rexburg, that burner phone. So we're going to jump back just a bit. This kind of went back and forth, and I haven't had time to put this in chronological order, so bear with me. On February 3rd, 2019, Lori flew from Arizona to Idaho. March 14th, 2019, Chad flew to Arizona. Then on July the 12th, the day after Charles is murdered, Lori pays for the Valley of the Sun mortuary for cremation and shipping of the remains. July 20th, Chad flies to Arizona on Lori's dime. October 2nd, there was a flight for Chad. And then August the 10th, there was a flight to Idaho for Lori. September 8th, 2019, we talked about that. That was the increase to the life insurance for Tammy. Should be noted also, that's the same date that Tylee was last seen alive. Now, Tammy died on October 19th, 2019, and Chad does have insurance fraud charges for this when his trial comes up. Now, this is something that we've always heard about, and there's been a lot of back and forth about whether or not Lori actually went to Knott's Berry Farm with Chad and his kids. She did. We found this out. There were 7 tickets purchased. Chad has 5 kids, 1 for Chad, 1 for Lori. Also, on the 8th of October, Chad tries to refinance his house. October 24th, this is 5 days after Tammy Daybell is murdered, Chad files for life insurance. It was 2 separate policies. So on the 24th, he filed for one. On the 30th, he filed for the second. That email to Kauai Dreams, by the way, was on November 8th. So we know 3 days after they got married. So get this, I did not know this, and this kind of blew me away. On June 9th, this is the day the search warrant happens on the property, and we finally find out where the kids are. Between 9:50 and 10 a.m., as Chad is sitting in the driveway watching them search his property, there were 3 transfers from Chad's account to 3 of his kids in the amount of $8,000 each for a total of $24,000 as this search is happening. The balance left in that account was $4,400 after he transferred money to his kids. So direct was over with that. The defense did not cross. They may need this witness later, so he was not released from his subpoena. They note that these witnesses are coming and going very quickly with little to no cross. I don't think this trial is going to last maybe 2 to 3 more weeks at most. I could be wrong, but we're flying through. Look at who we've already heard from and what has been discussed a lot. The next witness is Scott Cowden. He's with the Chandler Fire Department in Arizona. They did bring in some witnesses from the day Charles was murdered. It's in a very limited capacity. Judge Boyce instructed the jury, and he'll instruct them again at the end before deliberations. This guy is a fire engineer, a fireman, and a paramedic, and was working the day Charles was murdered. Now, the defense, there was objections flying everywhere during this stuff with Charles. So he entered the residence where Charles was killed, and he saw Charles lying on the floor just inside the door in that main room on his back. He was the first one to get to Charles and started his assessment. He saw blood on Charles's shirt along with 2 gunshot wounds. So when CPR is done, you usually will see an imprint, if you do it correctly, on the sternum. Well, that wasn't there because we know Alex didn't do CPR, even though he's on the 911 call, making noises, grunting as if he's doing so, which came back to bite him because his stepson, who didn't know he was his stepson, was like, yeah, I don't want to do CPR on Alex, who's laying in the floor. He also felt a crunch or a crack as he started compressions, which would not have happened if someone else had done CPR before him. Our next partner is Athletic Greens. I take AG1 by Athletic Greens literally every day. I gave AG1 a try because I'm always busy and my diet isn't the best, but I still want to get all the vitamins my body needs without taking a ton of pills. I take AG1 in the morning before my first cup of coffee, and it makes me feel ready to take on my day. Why take a bunch of different things when you can just mix 1 scoop of powder in water once a day? It's the healthiest thing you can do in under a minute. With 1 scoop, I'm getting 75 vitamins and minerals that help my mood, energy levels, and healthier hair, skin, and nails. It's delivered to me every month, and it's been the easiest way to arm my body with everything it needs to tackle my day. If you're looking for an easier way to take supplements, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/whattheworld. That's athleticgreens.com/whattheworld. Check it out. Base is an overpacker's dream. It can be hard to fit everything in, especially when it comes to luggage. With Base, there's room for everything. Deciding between a few pair of shoes? Bring them all with Base. I've been traveling back and forth to Idaho, and I have to say, I have 3 pieces of luggage from Base. I love them. They are so easy to roll. The padded handle, the built-in weight indicator has been amazing for me. Base was created by actress Shay Mitchell to make sleek and affordable bags, luggage, and accessories designed to help you travel effortlessly while still looking fashionable. Right now, Base is offering my listeners 15% off your first purchase by visiting basetravel.com/whattheworld. Go to basetravel.com/whattheworld for 15% off your first purchase. That's Base, BEIS travel.com/whattheworld. He also said he had bloods on his hands and gloves and would have expected Alex would have had blood on him if he had done the CPR. We also know that blood came out when they started CPR. That wouldn't have happened if it had been done before. So that was it. There was no cross on that. The next witness is Detective Werther with Chandler PD. He has a voice like Barry White. I'm just going to tell you, he should have a podcast because it was just deep and soothing. Now, Judge Boyce asked for a brief sidebar here. Lori was chatting with her attorney, Mr. Thomas. Judge Boyce when that was over, he wasn't on the bench. So we had a little break. The sidebar was about the previous rulings about the prior bad acts coming in. That was ruled on, I believe, in February. It's been a while since he ruled. So this is when he instructs the jury. Some of this stuff is being let in for limited purposes. Now, this witness had a discussion with Detective Moffat. The witness called Lori to add JJ's basic information into the report about the shooting that day because JJ was at the scene. And they also talked about the school that Lori took JJ to after the shooting. She told the detective after the shooting, she took JJ to Burger King for food, and he was the one that went and got that surveillance footage from there. The initial 911 call was placed at 8:36 a.m. Now, Lori was at the Burger King drive-thru at 7:54 or 7:55 a.m. I thought they were going to play that video, but I guess that's a little much for this trial to bring in. But the point was made that, the 911 call comes in at 8:36. She's before 8 o'clock. She's getting him food. They have a map up on the screen that shows the residence, the Burger King, and JJ's school. He had left the Walgreens off where, according to Lori, she said that they left in such a hurry that she stopped and got flip-flops for both kids. However, if you look at the police body cam footage of when she's standing in the road after Charles's murder, when her and Tylee get back, Lori's wearing shoes that are like 2 sizes too small, and her toes, her dogs are all curled over the end. So I think maybe she wore those flip-flops. My theory is she got some kind of biological evidence on her flip-flops and ditched them. So the distance from the residence to JJ's school is 7 or 8 miles. Now, this is where you look back and it wasn't caught, because Alex said that Lori had just left when he was talking to investigators, but the school's 7, 8 miles each way. That was too short of a time for her to get back in the time she did. So we know at 8:48 a.m., Lori and Tylee returned to the residence where Charles was shot. And they said it didn't seem plausible she could have been to those places as far as the time when the 911 call came in. They were initially told Lori went to CVS to get flip-flops. They finally found out after going to several different CVSs that it was a Walgreens. And then they got that from the location data on her phone, or Charles's phone. Charles's phone had data on it. And after the event, Lori gave the detective Charles's phone actually later in the day. I'm sure she was going through that with a magnifying glass in the time she had it. Would they learn Charles's phone was not on his person? So there were no further questions. Archibald did come up for cross on this, and he asked who called 911, and the witness said Alex Cox. And he did not talk to Alex that day, by the way. They talk about who was in the car at Burger King. JJ was in the front seat, Tylee in the back. That was the end of cross. And then there was another detective on the stand. It is the female detective that interviewed Lori and Tylee both at the Chandler Police Department the day Charles was murdered. Lori didn't have much reaction to her, and she already knew that Charles was dead and said she was present when it happened, which was news to detectives. Lori and Tylee were, as we know, standing outside beside the rental car Charles had. She said Lori was calm. There was no reaction. And at one point, Lori was laughing. This was prior to her officially being notified of Charles's death. Now, she drove Lori and Tylee to the Victim Advocacy Center for interviews. While transporting them, the conversation was not specific to the murder. And she said that investigators or police will really try not to discuss the event in the car. They want it in a controlled environment where there's video for later. She said Lori was calm, unemotional, not upset. The conversation mainly was about Tylee and her schooling and Tylee's future. Lori just as if nothing had happened, y'all. The witness conducted the interviews with both of them, and Lori told her they'd only lived there a few weeks, and she said they were separated, and she lived there with Tylee and JJ. Lori said Charles took JJ to Texas and said Charles will figure out how hard it is to take care of him. In that interview, Lori says, yeah, take him. And she said Charles was begging her after like 30 days to come get JJ, which is a lie. Lori said she requested Alex stay the night before the murders because Charles was coming into town. Then they go through the story. Charles left the phone in the house, came in to get it. She had it. This started the whole fight. There's another version of this story that I believe she told Melanie Gibb, where the phone was in the car, or she told a couple of people that the phone was in the car And then another story was it was in the house, but it's not surprising because all their stories didn't line up at all. If you put them side by side, there were so many discrepancies. I'll never understand why they weren't brought in the next day or even a week later to recount from the beginning what happened, because that's when they slip up. So they go through the whole Tylee came out with the bat. The witness was asked if Lori called 911, and we know she didn't. Detective Moffat was the one that interviewed Alex. During the interview, Lori was not upset. She was mundane. The state was finished, and Mr. Thomas did get up to cross for defense. Archibald. Mr. Archibald asked if Alex was arrested on July 11, 2019, and she said no. And Mr. Archibald said the information they had about this argument was consistent with the interviews that was given at the police stations, and the witness said mostly, although I disagree. He asked if it was consistent that Charles hit Alex, Tylee got the bat to protect her mom, and the witness says yes. I think Archibald got up there to put maybe in the jurors' minds, they're not going to hear the whole story about what happened that day is part of the bigger conspiracy. But I thought it was smart for Archibald to throw in there this alleged confrontation. I say Charles was ambushed, never knew what was coming. Look where he was shot. Right when he walked down that last step and walked maybe 3 feet in that room is where he was found dead. But he got it in. So there you go. Mr. Archibald asked if there is a correct or incorrect way to react to your estranged husband being shot. And the witness said it left an impression on her how unemotional Lori was. And that was it. Lindsay Blake got up for redirect, and she's trying to get in that this was not self-defense. And there were objections flying all over the place by the defense. I mean, lots of it. If I had $1 for every objection, it was more objections in that time frame than there has been the entire trial by the defense. And look, Lindsay Blake gets an A for effort or E for effort, however you say it, for trying to get the end that it was not self-defense. It didn't get there, though. The jurors, by the way, one thing I noticed today, and I have these in my car because I got an 11-year-old that's prone to get a little car sick. They actually have vomit bags at each of their little stations. I'm sure with some of the photos that have been shown, and we haven't heard from the medical examiner yet. That's one piece of testimony I'm most interested in. They do have those little ones that they give you in the hospital that are kind of like long bags. There was no further questions from the state. Then we get a kind of a surprise witness, somebody who I like a lot, April Raymond, who was Lori's friend when Lori lived in Hawaii. They maintained that friendship afterwards through texts and calls and a couple of visits. But Lori is writing as April comes in and looks up at her. Now, Laura Mathias told me her impression, because I couldn't see Lori's face straight on, her impression was that Lori seemed a little bit scared of April Raymond. April looked very stressed. She looked a little upset. Just, this is a hard thing to have to come into a trial of this magnitude and testify, even though April Raymond never bought into any of this hogwash Lori was trying to sell her. But there was a little issue that she might have been exposed to some pretrial testimony. And so Rachel Smith asked about a message that she got on Facebook. April said it had an interview which was conducted by Justin Lum of Fox 10 Phoenix with Lori's cousin, and it didn't involve this proceeding at all. She said she started the article but did not finish it, and then she did scroll down and read a few comments. And basically, the interview was about the LDS Church influence on the proceedings. She said she read a handful of those comments. Ultimately, Mr. Archibald asked if she had been contacted by the media for any follow-up interviews since she has spoken to the media in the past. She's been on Dateline. She's done several interviews before this went to trial. She says no. The state's objecting. Archibald keeps asking, has the media reached out to you for follow-up interviews? She said they have, but she told them she can't. So what she was doing was sending the directive that the prosecution gave her saying she can't talk. Judge Boyce is like, no harm, no foul. She can testify. They bring the jury in. Now, April still lives in Hawaii. She's been there for 18 years. And she said she did know Lori from a branch in Hawaii. Now, what's the difference between a branch and a ward? A branch is smaller, so there's not enough population for it to be a ward, is what she said. They actually met in 2016 at church. They became friends outside of church. In the past, April Raymond has said that Lori, being a divorced Mormon, it's rare. It's something that's not like the best thing you could be if you're a woman, apparently, and you're LDS. So they bonded over that. She said their kids spent time together. They spent holidays together. She knew Tylee and JJ. She said Colby lived on the island until he was called on his mission. After that, he came home again, but he wasn't there all the time. She also knew Charles, and her and Lori saw each other often. Charles worked at home and was kind of flexible. She said he jumped right in and would come to all the events for the kids. We know the nickname for Charles was Disneyland Dad. Her and Lori would get together regularly, about once or twice a week. They'd go for walks. Lori is a hairstylist, so she would actually color April's hair for her. They would food shop for church events. And after the Vallows moved back to Arizona, they kept in touch to an extent with the calls, texts, and the occasional visits. So February 2019, this is the time frame where Lori has disappeared for 50-something days. Nobody knows where she is. The theory is she was avoiding being served the divorce papers that Charles had filed. But it was unexpected for April, and Lori calls from the airport saying that her and Tylee are in Hawaii, and she was leaving Charles and they would talk later. Well, later was the next day when Lori said her and Tylee needed a place to stay. So April invited Lori and Tylee to come stay at her place. Lori said a lot had changed. Her and Charles were getting divorced because he had an affair, and this is where it got weird, y'all. Charles was now a demon, and the name was Ned Schneider. JJ was with Charles, and Lori said she was done with JJ. She said this to April Raymond. At that time, she had disappeared in February. She said that Kay and Charles would have to figure it out. And I'm going to tell you, the jurors were all writing when this was said. They did not want to forget that, you could tell. Lori told April Charles was already dead and a demon was living inside him and using his body as a host. So when April asked, how do you know? Lori said, because Charles is shorter. And y'all, there was one juror that was like, the heck did she just say? I love this jury's facial expressions because that's all they can do is just show facial expressions. And sometimes you just can't hide it. This stuff is so out there. Charles did not know that Lori was in Hawaii and asked April not to tell Charles if he asked where she was. She said Charles had a private investigator following her and would have her served in Idaho at a conference with divorce papers. She saw Lori again with Melanie Gibb in Hawaii. Tylee was not there. She was working for that chiropractic clinic, and JJ wasn't there either. The conversation again turned to Charles. Lori said he sent an email to all of her family asking for help, and she actually showed that email to April Raymond. She's asked again that she not respond to Charles if he reaches out. Melanie Gibb was confirming everything Lori was saying, by the way, about Charles being Ned Schneider, and he wasn't Charles, and a demon was living inside him. The relationship with Charles was brought up where he's on the business trip and Lori canceled his flight, got rid of all of his clothes, canceled his credit card, and said that Melanie Gibb, again, backed all this up. Lori told April the first night she was there, can you imagine this? You haven't seen your friend in a while, and your friend's like, hey, I'm a leader of the 144,000 for the second coming of Christ. I would have been like, girl, let me get you a room at the Comfort Inn and get you out of here. But Lori told April, I'm here to gather you. But she told April she would need to separate from her kids because she had fulfilled her role in their lives and a bigger mission was needed with Lori. Her kids, by the way, 10 and 12 at the time, although she has fulfilled her role in their lives. I'm going to tell you, I got an 11-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old. I hope I never fulfill my role in their lives until I take my last breath. But, I'm also not translated. Lori said she should leave her children with their father. The jury right now was like, what? So Archibald comes up for cross. He said Lori lived in Hawaii for a year or two, and he confirmed April still lives there. Lori told her she needed to leave the kids, and April noticed a change in Lori's beliefs. April said to her knowledge, Lori didn't believe in multiple creations when she lived in Hawaii back in 2016, but she did in 2019. April said her belief system changed from the group she had become a part of, and that's where she was kind of getting all these wild ideas. In July of 2018, before all of it hits the fan, before she meets Chad, Lori came to Hawaii and they did spend some time together. And Lori's beliefs had changed some, but it was amplified in 2019. April flat out made it known on that stand she does not believe all this crap that Lori peddles. And she also made clear that the LDS Church does not teach things like this. This is very separate. Lori didn't share anything with April about casting out sessions. And she did, however, mention the dark and light scales in 2019 on that visit. April thought it was unusual and nothing she had talked about when Lori lived on the island in 2016. So she's seeing this big change. In 2019, she told April she was a goddess. And April said, I tried not to react. I just listened. In 2018, she did say she was a leader of the 144,000. And April asked, why change your beliefs? And Lori said she had experiences in the temple that changed her views. And she had found a group of like-minded people. April told Lori she didn't believe in any of that. And April's impression was that Lori just thought she wasn't ready to hear it yet. Kind of like yesterday with that phone call with Colby. Oh, you don't understand. It's more your problem. You don't understand why your siblings were found dead and buried on Chad's property. You don't understand yet. You don't know what happened. She said Lori never talked about setting up the Church of the Firstborn with her. Now, April and Lori both were active in their church. They worked with children 12 and under, and it's called primary. And so you teach scriptures, you have music time, they have activities once a week, holiday parties, and Sunday service. April had not met Melanie Gibb, by the way, until she came to Hawaii with Lori. Melanie Gibb and Lori, according to April, were on the same page with their beliefs. Remember, during testimony, Melanie Gibb tried to walk it back, saying, I'm not sure how much I really believed it, but you got April Raymond, who has no dog in this fight, saying Gibb was right there with her. April said Lori didn't ask directly about certain things. It was more of a subtle grooming to get a feel for how April took all these new revelations by Lori about religion. April was like, I'm good. Thanks. See you later. So cross was over. There was a brief redirect. Rachel Smith asked about the hierarchy of the religion Lori was in, and April just did not know that. April thinks the main players were the podcast group. She remembers the names Zulema, Melanie Gibb, Jason Mao, Thor, and Chad. So she was finished and excused from her subpoena, and we were recessed for the day. Lori watched her as she walked out, but there was a little... Now, I did see her watch April walk out. Lori kept her head down a little more when April was testifying. Not sure. Maybe she just didn't want to accidentally make eye contact with her. It seems like April Raymond was a good friend to Lori, who was normal, unlike the band of misfits she was doing podcasts with and stuff. And maybe there was a little bit of shame. I mean, I'm just speculating, but you have to think, you haven't seen her in years. And now she's here testifying against you in your double murder trial, conspiracy trial, and grand theft. I mean, it's quite a leap from the last time they saw each other. But April Raymond, I thought, was a great witness. She's very matter of fact, beautiful lady. So curious to see who's on tomorrow. I'll keep you guys updated. Follow me on Twitter, Pretty Lies Alibi. Also, it's on the website, prettyliesandalibis.org. You can go to the Twitter page. You can read those tweets, and they go from newest to oldest. So you have to keep scrolling. I'm doing them in the thread, but I'm not sure how they're coming across on that website. Also, if you're watching this on YouTube and you're not subscribed, do me a big favor, hit subscribe. If you want to know when I upload a little YouTube short like this morning when I was right behind Lori's little prison bus, hit the bell notification. It'll let you know anytime something new is uploaded, but I would really appreciate it. I got a lot of people, like 80% of people who watch my videos haven't hit subscribe, and it helps the channel grow. So I do appreciate you guys. Thanks for all you do, and thanks for trusting me to bring you this case. This case is so dear to my heart, and it's personal, and it is surreal every day to be in this courtroom, but also seeing justice for JJ, Tylee, and Tammy start to come to life with the testimony is a good thing. And I do think we will get there. Then she's got charges waiting for her in Arizona for Charles Vallow. Conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. We're nowhere near done. Chad Daybell, no trial date for him, although I think it'll be mostly the same evidence. They've said as much in the arguments in the past to not sever these cases. But I guess I'm be back in Boise at some point for Chad. John Pryor, by the way, was here today, listening to the testimony, getting a feel, I guess, for jury reactions and that kind of thing. He's allowed in because he's a member of the public. So there you go. That's today. We'll see you tomorrow. I will be on Banfield tonight at the 10 o'clock hour, top of the hour, with Laura Matthias, who has become my partner in crime out here, and I just adore her. All right, guys, we'll see you soon. Have a good one.